Hey.
Who's sponsoring?
Here. Yeah, I'm going to announce in a second. I'm just going to get. Come sit, Mayor. It's standing room only.
Yeah, look at you. Sort of the idea.
What kind of knowledge and what kind of kedusha.
I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not getting involved. He has a father that's on row. If we ask him questions,
we have to ask ChatGPT to find out what time the Sivan started.
All right.
Well, I'm sure Mark's going to do it here for sure.
Of course. The filter wouldn't see any.
dmeitav is money.
All right.
More back.
So I'd like to welcome back Reb Shua Krygier. You know, the first time there was no expectations, you exceeded it. Now there's a little bit more pressure. First of all, last time was Purim, so you couldn't do any wrong. This is the month of Adar. Now it's already Av. It's a little more serious. So the stakes have been of a chas v'shalom. Not yet. No pressure yet.
Not yet, Av.
We're getting ready. Mishnich Nasav, right? So Shabbos Mevarchim. So tonight's shir, I want to thank everybody for coming and filling up, especially family members. Welcome to Yisrael. Rabbi Drieben Shlita is here, and his father, Rabbi Krygier Shlita too, and his brother, straight after AI. There's no AI tonight, you don't have to worry, after yesterday's Asifa. So today's shir is sponsored by the Urman Lieberson families, a schus for Refuah Shlema from Matos-masei. And Zecher Nishmas, one of the iconic figures of our shul, Benny Urman, Al bchol, Ben Yehuda Pesach, Ben Shmuel Eliyahu. His yard site is Chav Tes, right? Chav Tes. Chav Tes, and Shom should have an Aliyah. And the Krygier family in recognition of Benny, and also as Akar Setoiv, and a bracha to everybody in everything this month of Av. So Rabbi Shua, please go ahead.
This week's parsha is Matos-masei, and we know that every year Masei always precedes the parsha of Chazon. So the next week's parsha of Chazon is always on Devarim, always the week before we lay in Masei. And I'm going to try to explain the connection between Parshas Masei and the time period that we're in, the 3 weeks. The question that we're going to ask on the parsha is quite obvious. V'yichtav Moshe motza'ehem l'masa'ehem. Moshe wrote the departures and the travels al pi Hashem. Ve'ela masa'ehem l'motza'ehem. And these are their travels according to their departures. Motza'ehem comes from a lashon of yitzia, of departure. It's very strange. It seems a clear discrepancy. We start off saying motza'ehem l'masa'ehem. First we say departures, then we say their travels. And then we speak, and then when it says al pi Hashem, and then we say ve'ela masa'ehem l'motza'ehem. These are their travels according to the departures. Very strange. Rav Avram Gurewitz Shlita says over a beautiful vart. Says Rashi brings down a medrash, Tanchuma, which seems a bit puzzling. Rashi's trying to explain why does the Torah feel the need to go through all the encampments, all the 42 masais, all the places that they camped in the midbar, and then recount it over here in Masai. What's the purpose? So Rashi says a mashal. You have the king with his son, and his son's ill, and he goes to a faraway place. And when he comes back, he recounts exactly where they went. He said, we stopped here, this is where we drank, this is where we ate, this is where your head hurt. So the question is, okay, so I get we're coming to summer vacation, and therefore with explanation, you're going to go on summer vacation, you come back, your kids aren't going to remember a thing, so you go through and you say, we went here, went there, went to Lakewood, went to Syracuse, blah, 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 till we came back. But then, why is the son sick? And again, there's got to be more of a purpose to this mashal, but again, it's unclear. And Victoria Lake, obviously, it was on the way back. And it's a bit strange. So one more point he points out is that the son is sick. It doesn't mention that he stopped at all the places and at all the hospitals, at all the right doctors. He just says that this is where you were, this is where we slept, this is where we ate. Again, why is that? What's the purpose behind it? This explains a beautiful explanation. He explains the child that was sick, it was not a physical ailment. He said it was an emotional, it was psychological. He was dealing with issues that he had nowadays, that we as we would describe it nowadays. And he was saying, they went on a trip. He said, I got to take this child away. I'm going to heal him. And he takes him to the Far East, to go climb in the Himalayas. And as they go there, first they pass through the child clearly has a lot of issues. He's selfish. He's got no willpower. He's a coward. He's spoiled. He figures, I'm going to take him on a trip. Let's see how we'll deal with this. See if he comes back the same person. He says, we're going to go to the Far East. We're going to go to the Himalayas. And they go there and they pass through the slums of all the area around. And then they have to get up to base camp. And then now they're going to start the whole boot camp. And he trains. And, and they go without eating nice food. And they're going with just their little energy bars. It's tough, and they're going to rappel down mountains. And this kid who's a scaredy cat is now going to have to start climbing. And he's going to be working really hard. He comes back after this entire trip, and he's a changed man. And he says to his father, it's unbelievable, because I was climbing the mountain, I had to get over my fear of heights. And because, I was rappelling down, I was petrified, and I had to just get over the fear. And now I feel confident. I feel like I can do this. As we're passing through the slums, I see the people over here, they literally live with nothing. I realize I got a great life. I know, it's unbelievable for me. And as we're working together as a team, I realize that I can't be selfish. The only way I'm going to make it through this and I'm going to be able to survive is I got to be tough. I got to have grit. I've got to be able to be a team person. I got to work with the team. And through that, I'll be able to do well in life. He's mamish a different person. So his father says to him, you're right, 100%. But it wasn't because you happened to be in the Himalayas and therefore you needed to climb. Therefore, this is what happened and you passed through the slums. So why do you think I took you there? The reason I took you there was because you clearly were somebody that needed help. And as you went through these situations, you went through these circumstances, it created you, it turned you into a man. So I was sitting on a flight next to a fellow, a very successful black man. He told me he came from Harlem, typical, he didn't have a father, and he was an unruly fellow. So I said, how did you become successful? Whatever, he didn't know who his father was, and he was, he's a typical
I'm a New Yorker.
misbehaving juvenile delinquent, and I said, and he's a very successful individual. So he says, you know what it did to me? I said, no. He said, I went to the army. He said, the army makes you into a man. Army teaches you discipline. He said the entire boot camp, he said it wasn't about teaching physical endurance. Obviously we did the physical. He said it was just about breaking us down, turning us into people. He said every single time, making us cry over and over and over again. He said till we came out of boot camp, we were different people. So it turned me into a man. So that's the pshat in this mashal that the Rashi's bringing, is Rashi's coming to teach us a lesson. The reason we're going through these masei, we're going through all these encampments, was not just to purely describe what they went through, where they went to geographical locations. We're describing what happened there. We said you went to Mara and you cried that there was bitter water. Maisha fixed that for you. The next camp you came to, all of a sudden there's 12 trees and there's perfectly good water. If you would have just waited, you would have gotten it. The Rebbe Shua taking care of you. Rebbe Shua gives you man. You go through 40 years in the midbar with man. It teaches you amunah. It teaches bitachon. It teaches that every single day the bread's going to come to your door. All these places that Klall Yisrael went, sometimes it taught them good, nice lessons, beautiful the man. Sometimes it was hard lessons. It was tough lessons. They went through Kairach. They go through Shalach. They go through the Meraglim. These were tough love lessons. They were very tough lessons. Pinchas with Zimri. At the same time, each one of these camps created Klall Yisrael and shaped them into who they were. He said, and therefore that's the mashal. The mashal is that the king says it's not because we went somewhere far and circumstantially you were in this place and therefore it became your. I took you there to be able to give you the circumstances. He says that most people touch meitzah. The lashon of meitzah comes from a lashon of yitzia, from going out, the departure. He said over from the Ksav Kabbalah that the touch of meitzah, the mem is part of the shirish. It says meitzah, which is not a common word. He says it means a happening. He says, therefore, that's what it means. They're happenings according to where they were. Because that's how Klall Yisrael looked at it. They said, according to where we were, each location created a certain circumstance, and therefore we had a specific nisyanon. Therefore we had a certain test. And because we had that test, therefore that shaped us. But the pasuk finishes off, the es masa'ehem l'maitza'ehem. It was al pi Hashem. And therefore it was masa'ehem l'maitza'ehem. Why do you think I took you to those masais? Why did I put you in those places? L'maitza'ehem, so that you would have those situations arise to be able to turn you into the people that you're going to become. And that's what Klall Yisrael literally went through the 40 masais. They became different people from who they started off with leaving Mitzrayim until they came out of Mitzrayim and they come to Eretz Yisrael. They're completely different people because of masa'ehem l'maitza'ehem. because of the places they camped, so that they could have those situations. Because Klall Yisrael thought that the dmeitav, the happenings happened because of masei, where they were. But since it was al pi Hashem, the eila masei l'dmeitav, it was masei according to what happened. Moving on to the time period that we're dealing with, the 3 weeks. All the achronim, later achronim for sure, all ask a very strong question, which if you don't, until I heard the question, it didn't bother me. As soon as the question, it's a very bothersome question. What is the purpose of Golus? We understand Klall Yisrael does averos, and therefore they have to be punished. Punish them in their land. If we're still in Eretz Yisrael, we have a Beis Hamikdash, we have people to look up to, we have the Sanhedrin, there's hope. Maybe we'll be able to turn around and become great people. You're going to send us out to Golus. What do you expect is going to happen? We're going to be influenced from the people around us, all the different cultures, all the different peoples. What is the purpose of Golus? Why would the Rebbeinu Shalom put us into Golus? And this question is asked from Sham Shal Hirsch, and there's 19 letters, spends a long time on it. The Malbim speaks about it, the Michtav Milio, and I'm going to focus on the Michtav Milio's shot to answer up what is Taka, the purpose of Golus.
Up until 100 years ago, we didn't have this question. Right?
It was before 100.
150 years ago.
Why does it be after the Beis Hamikdash? Even as we're back in the Beis Hamikdash to go into Golus would be the
I'm
question.
pointing out the people who asked the question. Yeah, I think the Maral also asked the question, but I was just bringing it up.
Maral himself.
Yeah, he also asked a question. But I was just going to focus on these ones. These are the ones I saw inside, so therefore I'm just saying that I happen to know they speak about it.
told us that we're supposed to be in Golus.
The Rebbeinu Shalom tells us about Golus, but what is the purpose? Clearly there's going to be a purpose behind the Golus. It's not just a punishment. There's got to be a reason. Otherwise, the Rebbeinu Shalom should really keep us in Eretz Yisrael, and over there we'd really be able to perfect ourselves a lot easier and a lot better than if he's going to send us out to Golus. So Michtav Milio explains that every single country, we know there's 70 nations, every country has a very specific feel to it and a very specific outlook on life, very specific culture. He says when Klall Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael, he says it's hard to know what to work on. That was his basic idea. He says every country, whatever you go to, it has its culture, has something that is directly usually against, that has a different viewpoint, and is therefore ends up creating a different assignment. And I'll explain. The Rav Moshe Shapiro once went to London, Paris, and Berlin. And he said, wow, it's unbelievable. These 3 cities are literally neged, kina, taiva, and kavod. He said, Berlin is neged kina. There was that strength and what led them to many wars over the years. He said France is taiva, which is quite clear. Paris was always the center of culture, center of music, center of arts. And he said London was always the seat of power, the seat of kavod. Which means that any country has a very specific feel to it. I was in the Blind Museum in Eretz Yisrael in Tel Aviv. So there was the blind guide, so everyone had a chance to ask him a question. I asked, do you travel? Is there any reason that you would travel? Like, there's nothing to see? So she said, yes. Wherever I go, I feel the differences. I hear, I sense that there's a difference. She said, I've been to Paris, I've been to different cities, and I could feel the difference. So obviously it's not something that we would pay attention to because we're busy looking at it. But she said there's a clear feeling. There's a different, every country has its perspective and its feeling that you end up feeling. Its specific atmosphere. Thank you. He says that pshat is when Klall Yisrael went to every single Golus that we've been through, it created a specific nisyanos, a specific challenge. And when we were able to meet that challenge, it created an opportunity. And there are many examples I'm going to try to give where we see this very obviously illustrated. And I think the most obvious one is in the last generation. What Klall Yisrael was dealing with before World War II, with the nisyanos that Klall Yisrael was dealing with, they were dealing with the Yiddishists, the Bundists, they were dealing with communism. These were very, very, very strong forces that wreaked havoc in Klall Yisrael. After the war, Klall Yisrael comes to America, these literally disappeared. We had the faint echoes of Yiddishists, faint echoes of Bundists, but this was not the main nisyanos that Klall Yisrael faced at the time. They were dealing with with different issues. What happened to these issues? These issues disappeared because clearly it was very specific to the place and the time. And as soon as that place and time changed, these issues disappeared because there are different nisyanos in every single area, every single time period. And many of these time periods created certain parts of Klall Yisrael that we see today. For example, the Rambam's Meir Nevuchim was clearly, wrote that to combat the philosophy that he was dealing with at the time. The Malbim's Tanakh was written as a clearly to combat the maskilim of the time. Chasidus, Musar, Rosham Shofal, Hirsch's Mahalach, these were all created to be able to combat what the nisyanos was at the time. And these are incredible assets to Klall Yisrael. Klall Yisrael's changed. We've added many different parts to Klall Yisrael through the challenges that we faced in every single Golus. Wherever the Rebbeinu Shalom took us, whether it was Spain, whether it was France in the earlier times of the Rishonim, whether it was England, whether it was America today, every place we went to created a new set of challenges, and therefore when Klall Yisrael is able to combat that, and we're able to get over it, we're able to meet those challenges with success, all of a sudden it creates an opportunity for Klall Yisrael to be able to change their core. And we see this idea very clearly, not just in the 150 years ago, the Achrayim. We see this clearly, very clearly in the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim says the same idea when it comes to Mitzrayim. We know Klall Yisrael went down to Mitzrayim. They reached the 49th level of Tumah. At the same time, when we talk about the Klall Yisrael in Mitzrayim, we say it was the Korah Barzal. This is what shaped Klall Yisrael. How do you reconcile this idea? First, we say that we're on the 49th level of Tumah. At the same time, this is what shaped Klall Yisrael. The answer is because externally, of course, Klall Yisrael went down to the 49th level of Tumah. So we see wherever we go, externally, there are certain changes that change the veneer of a yid and makes them seem a little bit different. For example, the lavush. Everyone, we dress differently today than we did in Europe. I mean, some people, kept the lavush of Europe, but no one's going to claim that they kept the lavush of the Rishonim in France and in Spain, and definitely back to Bavel. There are differences, not only in dress, but obviously in language, but more importantly, even in outlook. Things change, but at the same time, the core of what Klall Yisrael gains, the core of what Klall Yisrael steigs, could be considered a much higher level. Therefore, the Orach Chaim explains that when Klall Yisrael had to be in Mitzrayim, it changed them, it changed their core, who they were. Yes, externally they reached the 49th level of Tumah, but as soon as the Rebbeinu Shalom removed them from the Mitzri environment, they were able to jump up to the 50th level of kedusha, because it wasn't something that was internal. Maybe that would have been the 50th level of Tumah, might have been internal. This was not internal. It was just an exterior, a veneer that they happened to have picked up. And as soon as we removed them from that place, they were able to take the core values that they picked up, the core middos that they built on themselves, and therefore they were able to go take that on and be able to steig weiter. I think. To bring out this point is every year the Aguda convention gets together and they describe the nisyanos of the time, and we look at it as something that's circumstantial. Because we are here, therefore the circumstances create this situation, therefore we have to deal with the nisyanos. And I think that's what our parsha is teaching us, is that's not true. It's not that it was masa'ehem. It wasn't that pshat is because of moitzeim l'masa'ehem. It happened to be that the Malbim was trying to combat maskilim. It happened to be the Hasidim were trying to combat maskilim, therefore they created Hasidus. No, the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to create Hasidus, he wanted to create Musar, he wanted to create the Malbim's Pirush, he wanted to create the Rambam's Mahalach and Moreh Nevuchim, and to be able to combat philosophy. The Rebbeinu Shalom wanted Klall Yisrael to be able to gain these values, to be able to gain these parts of Klall Yisrael. They never would have been able to build if they were in Eretz Yisrael. Obviously, if they would have been the highest level, they would have gained that. But as soon as there was a cracks in the core of Klall Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shalom had to rebuild the core. And therefore, by sending them to different places in the Golus, different time periods, Klall Yisrael was able to gain from all those places, and were able to build a certain resilience, and were able to build their core and make them different people. And I think that's why we lane it during the 3 weeks, because that's the lesson of Golus. Klall Yisrael's got to realize as we go through Golus, as it's not just happens to be a situational, that we have to deal with the situation, and therefore the nisyanos creates challenges and we got to deal with them. No, the challenges are there to create opportunities for us to become better people. And I think, obviously, to bring that onto a personal level, they say when a person is going to get to Shemaim, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to show him the 42 masais that he himself went through. And we all know what we've been through. We've gone through the way we grew up, the schools we went to, the yeshivas we went to, the yeshivas we didn't get into, the jobs that we got, who we married, our in-laws, Baruch Hashem, and all of the people who we've met, our friends.
Your parents.
Your parents. I said that already. I said your family.
Your mother's on.
I said that.
Okay.
I said that already. I said who you grew up.
Shul.
You're the shul that you're a part of. No, I was going to say that was next. The kehillah that you're a part of. All these shape a person. Right. A person feels, and of course, obviously, what it comes down to, as you said, is the cottage at the end. But what it does is it shapes who we are. It creates certain challenges, as we know. As my father always says, every person's a role model. Some people you learn what to do, and some people you learn what not to do. But a person's got to realize that as they go through these masais, you say, listen, the Rebbeinu Shalom put me in this situation. What could I do? This is what formed me into who I was, because consequentially of who I was, who my circumstances were. It's not the pshat. The pshat is masa'eim, is masa'eim's masa'eim. The Rebbeinu Shalom puts you in your situation so that you should be able to meet those challenges, and as you meet those challenges, that will create an opportunity for you to be able to form who you are. And I think just to add on to the famous story of the Reb Salanter, where his Talmud said to him, Rebbe, if I had the head of the Shagas Aryeh and the heart of the Vaida and the midas of the Rebbe, then I could serve Hashem. And he said, no, with you, with your head, with your heart, with your midas. And I think I want to add to that, obviously, it's your circumstances. No one expects you to be Rashi. You didn't grow up in France 1,000 years ago. You didn't have his Rabban. You have your Rabban, you have your friends, you have your community, you have the people who you're exposed to, the culture that you're exposed to. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to steig in that situation. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, I give you a challenge of who you are, and obviously on a collective level, Klall Yisrael, where they are. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, in that situation, it's the Matos-masei l'moitzeehem. I put you in the Masos. I put you in those places. I made you travel through those places, l'moitzeehem, for those opportunities, for those happenings that will happen there, and that's how you'll be able to form who you are in Klall Yisrael on a collective level. When we're going to come to Mashiach, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to say, I put you through those same 42 Masos to form Klall Yisrael collectively into who you are today. Just to give a very quick sikha. So trying to explain the connection of the 3 weeks, and we asked the question, the discrepancy. We started off with moitzeehem l'maseehem, and then ve'elam maseehem l'moitzeehem. We spoke about the medrash that Rashi brings down of the king that brought his son through, that the king brought his son because he was ill to a certain destination, and afterwards he recounts the places. We asked, so why is he recounting the places? How is that answering the question of why does the Rebbeinu Shalom feel the need to recount the situation? And we said the reason is because the situation is what healed the child. It wasn't where he went. It wasn't necessarily the destination. It was the place and the place that he met along the way. It was each situation that he had along the way, which is what healed him from not his physical illness, but from his emotional, from his psychological issues that he was dealing with. We said, therefore, that's why that answers the discrepancy. Most people teach as departures, but he's teaching Maitzeehem doesn't refer to the departures. The Ksava Kabbalah says Maitzeehem refers to Lashon Maitzah, which means a happening. So therefore, the Klall Yisrael thought Maitzeehem, the happenings happened circumstantially according to Maseim where they camped. But the Rebbeinu Shalom says, no, it's al pi Hashem. These are the encampments according to the happenings that I wanted to happen. We said that, going on to the question all the Chayim ask of what's the purpose of Golus? Keep us in Eretz Yisrael, Adrab over there, we'll really be able to perfect ourselves. And the answer is that when you're dealing with a crumbling core, it's much easier if we have a head-on challenge, and we got to deal with the challenge at hand, than to just be able to try to figure out what the issues are in the core and try to fix those cracks. Rebbeinu Shalom therefore sent Klall Yisrael out all through the years to all different places, and be able, through combating the challenges that we had to deal with, Klall Yisrael built resilience, and it created opportunities and added parts of Klall Yisrael we never would have had before. We have Mardavuchim, we have Tanakh with the Malbim, Chassidus, Litvaks, all these inyanim, and therefore I want to say on a personal level, obviously it's the same thing. The Rebbeinu Shalom puts us all through our circumstances. And a lot of time we say, circumstantially I happened to up at this yeshiva, and therefore, that kind of formed who I was. I ended up in that job, that kind of formed who I was. No, the Rebbeinu Shalom put you in those situations so that you would have certain challenges that if you'd be able to make your way through those challenges, it'll be able to create an opportunity and formulate who you are. Chaps.
So I just want to clarify. So the nisyanos of we always say in the 3 weeks because the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because there was a sinas chinam, and therefore we need avos chinam. So is the nisyanos the same thing really through generation, just window dressed differently? Right, so then whether I'm in France and I'm playing soccer, even if I was in Rashi's time, I would have played soccer, I guarantee it. So is the nisyanos the same thing? In other words, go discover that avos chinam, but Hashem is disguising it as it moves along, or is there a completely different nisyanos?
I was trying to go with the Mahalach that there are different nisyanos.
Different nisyanos in every generation. It's not the same one. It just
obviously there's the underlying idea that you're saying of a system that we have to. But I think there are many.
In other words, even of the sick boy that you said he's being brought, really it's just recognition of what the father did for him. That really seems to be the common denominator throughout it. Remember, I put you here, and then you weren't, because he never recognized the goodness that his father was doing to him. So he's putting him in different situations till he recognizes that. Right? In other words, Hayesh Hashem Bakir me.
And so I wasn't going with that because he doesn't mention
every
that.
Situation completely different.
I was saying that each situation healed him in a different way.
Wherever you are, it's a different situation. It's not like every time I go to the doctor, he says, you're sugar, you're overweight, right? The doctor keeps saying the same thing.
Right.
So the nisyanos.
You're not listening.
So is that the same nisyanos? So in other words, yeah, but what happens is the same nisyanos, but the food ends up being differently, but it's really the same nisyanos. So I'm saying a cake, I'm saying a bread, but it's really all about the sugar. But he's saying that it's really a completely different side. It's the weight, it's your heart, it's your cardio, it's your brain. At different places, it's a different type of nisyanos. That's all. I don't know if it's 6 of one or half of the other. I think I know. So, but I think it's. I think on a personal level, I'm just thinking. First of all, you have to say l'chaim. I think on a personal level, really, it's karmel chaim. It's the same thing over and over again until you beat it.
I forgot to add the Hasidic twist.
That's what you did. You mentioned Hasidic.
No, I meant to mention. No, I meant not just the Hasidus. I meant to say
like a bad
the
penny.
Hasidim talk about nitzos. That's what I meant to say. Hasidim all the time talk about nitzos.
Now where you see say l'chaim, the emphasis.
I forgot to mention this.
Yes, that.
But as I like to say that what the Hasidim talk about very lofty, Litvaks talk about the same thing. They just talk about it very practically, which is what you see.
Different language.
That's not true.
A lot of it. I think if you see the Michtam Leo, he does that a lot. And the point, the Michtam Leo, he's the synthesis of the Hasidus. So I think the idea of what I mean to say is that the nitzos, what it means is there's good in all
Whatever
these
you have to
countries.
collect.
Practically, that can be midas, certain points in the cultures. Right.
All the time.
I was referring to that archaim. They were saying that what is the nitzos on a practical level? On a practical level means that there are milas in that place that Klall Yisrael has to be able to pick up and steig from. And that's really what it means. So obviously, on a lofty level, it's the nitzos, but what the Michtam Leo brings it right in, is that's what it means, that Klall Yisrael picks up nitzos everywhere, picks up gerim everywhere. Gerim doesn't just mean converts, it means converting those nitzos, it means pulling them out. Right. And that's what I mean. You see from every place they went, which like as obviously on a once we're having a l'chaim, right? But the fact that the Chabad drink vodka and the Sephardim drink arak, I mean, clearly that might have been picked up from the surroundings, right? Obviously, it became Halek, and the Hungarians eat Slivovitz, right? Drink Slivovitz. I mean, but I'm saying obviously that's sillier.
Become a booze expert.
I could say it on all foods also if you like.
What do you think?
Talk about the
Shimon,
kibbeh
no,
and
the whole day. Can I drink this? Can I drink this? Can I drink?
You got to give the share on sherry casks.
All right. Did you gave one a
Mike,
shot?
No, but I haven't. No, but I'll come.
Great.
L'chaim.
That was terrific.
Chaim,
But that's really the point that there is. Klall Yisrael, Hasidus definitely picked up things from the surroundings. You know, the fact that the Chabad loves.
There's no doubt that
Chabad picked up music, for example. Chabad is the nice nigunim. The Russians were always very into music. The other Eastern Europeans weren't as into the music as the Russians.
You know that there's Russian influence into it. There's going to be an
That's not necessarily bad. That might be good. That's what I'm trying to say. It's maybe they're pulling out something that was good. Hasidus definitely, there's a reason that Hasidus only came around at that time.
To connect to Klall Yisrael in a different way.
But maybe I'm saying that was clearly the mila of what they picked
And
up.
again, like you said, it was a response to the Muslim.
A response, right?
100%.
Hasidim or Levium or even more.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's the idea in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is so kedusha, but the goal is that it's supposed to be first in the hands of the goyim.
But
The
you
goyim
did
are supposed to
something
take
that
it
presents it backwards.
Yeah. The goyim are
Hasidim,
supposed to have it first.
whenever
Just
they
like
start off with
internet
Torah,
kedusha, but when it came
they
out,
start
it
off with
wasn't
Al-Chaim. You know why?
You take, because that's what happens,
And we're
because
gonna-
it's so
we're gonna-
No, it's fine.
and we're going to try to do it, and that's
Yes,
how
I
even
know that.
that's how
According to
Jews are
Goyim.
going to take interest.
Really?
Goyim are all over
Goyim
the world.
had said that
Jews
he
are
had
getting
more
there, they're
respect,
transforming wherever they go, and then
special
it's gonna get
respect for his Aleph-based teacher
First
than for
Hashem
any
always
other Rebbe that he had. Probably up until 2.5 he had another Rebbe.
Shimon used
Right?
to have it, and they
So,
read it.
and he
So
said,
explain why.
He said, because another
But
Rebbe,
the oil
he might have taught me
thinks about
MS.
as
First
the-
No,
Rashi,
not
that's the
MS.
first
You never
Rashi
know.
says.
But an Aleph is an Aleph, and a Beis is a Beis.
L'chaim, you can't lie.
So whatever Dvar Torah I'm going to tell you as a chassid, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But Shakolni B'Dvoroi, that's it.
So he had a war, you
You
lost.
started in the L'chaim at the end.
No, but I did say Shachar. Shachar said
Oh, you said Shachar. Smith Shachar.
How is it that we were able to hold on to Eretz Yisrael 2,000 years later? It's still known as our land. Nobody talks anymore. This is Indian land. Maybe they do. Somehow when we're into something indigenous, it's not a joke. Anyway, thank you for everybody who came on to Zoom.
And I take the
Reb Shua.
Yes, sure.
Moshe.
That was terrific.